Yo, it's Dohrok here, and today we gotta talk about LoA On and what's coming for Lost Ark. Was it a big hit? Was it a big nothing burger? Opinions seem to be all over the place on this one, so let's take a look at it and see what it's all about. Now, I didn't personally make a video around predictions for LoA On because honestly, I felt like it would be pretty boring. We've had a couple of live streams from the director where a lot of topics on what was happening with game design were already discussed. There were already several issues that were voiced by myself and majority of the community that needed to be addressed, and honestly, still needs to be addressed. Like relic book prices, or gem supply, or the massive amount of system bloat, or how inaccessible the game is for new and returning players. There's a lot of things. And this was further fueled with the original gem change design, and through that whole mess we got more director live streams where we saw more of what they plan to do leading up to Kazeros, and how there's a hyperfixation on maintaining value on what people have already spent on in the game. So I wasn't expecting too much because I felt like it would cover pretty much everything up until LoA On Winter, where I expect that we'll see more of what happens after Kazeros. And I had already talked about this quite a bit too on my stream over at twitch.tv/DJ Dohrok. I don't think we're going to be seeing any crazy design decision changes made until after Kazeros, because the development cycle for any software company is not usually developing new content or changing ideas for a release that is happening in a month. So I expected to see more info on female paladin, maybe a new strike raid, the Kazeros raid, and a new class reveal, and that was about it. What I did not expect was a 30-minute intro into LoA On that acted as a summary for all of those previous director live streams. I can see how this info could still be relevant in LoA On, but this seems like an after the show kind of topic, which I have to say that the presentation format of LoA On was just not good. And because it wasn't good, a lot of hype around this event is being ill-received. So I want to, at a minimum, highlight some of the good things coming from LoA On, starting with Valkyrie. This is our official name for the female paladin. I know a lot of people have been pretty excited for this class release since it was revealed a while back. I personally felt like the showcase for this class was sick. I was expecting female paladin to be essentially another bland support, but to me this looks like it could be a really cool DPS with the capability of being a support, and I quite enjoy this concept. I mained as a resto druid in WoW for like 10 years before maining a priest. And in both cases, I enjoyed healing but had DPS or tanking sets so I could do whatever was needed. I think there's a big annoyance in Lost Ark and Party Finder when there's a discrepancy in support availability at different item levels. Sometimes there's a million supports at lower item levels or even much higher item levels and a complete lack of DPS. So having the option to swap back and forth, I think some people will enjoy having. And some people will strictly play as one or the other, and that's totally cool too. It's just nice to have some flexibility and does add some unique sense into a few of the classes. Which, they're expanding the DPS capabilities of all supports. They waited until the Q&A to mention it, but there will be a rework to all supports having better DPS capabilities with Valkyrie coming out. I probably won't make one though. I don't have anything really saved up, but if I did, I would probably only play it as a DPS. The animations look super sick to me with all those flying swords going out. I hope everyone that makes one does enjoy it. It looks like it probably won't come out until August though for global, and I personally probably won't make one because if you made it through the Q&A after LoA On, then you probably saw the sneak peek at the next class after Valkyrie, which is Dragon Knight. Dragon Knight was kind of revealed, but it was so far into the presentation that even I missed it because I went to bed thinking there's no way that they would reveal a class this far into LoA On. They showed this silhouette of Dragon Knight at least, and this is such a familiar image to me. If anyone can remind me of the character that I'm thinking of that this silhouette is making me think about, please let me know in the comments. I'm getting Mutant Dragon vibes from Ragnarok Online if anyone played Ragnarok, but I don't think that's what I'm thinking of. Regardless, that big axe and wings are looking like an aesthetic that I'm going to enjoy. And I think I might start saving now just to giga boost a Dragon Knight in the future when it comes out. They also talked about the Kazeros Raid. I have to say again, I am an enjoyer of this fantasy, medieval, gothic art style. So this is looking really cool. And the raid format I think is pretty interesting. Act 4 will be broken into 2 different raids. There's the Act 4 raid. I'm just going to call it the Abyssal Fortress. and the Denouement, which is Kazeros himself. Both raids are 2 gates. Act 4 starts with Echidna, and then we get to meet a new dude named Armok, the Abyssal Monarch. The showcase for these fights look pretty sick. Echidna has some new hand fans now, and Armok is something like straight out of Elden Ring, or if Pantheon from League had bigger balls. I just hope there's no ridiculous mind control mech from Echidna this time. Once you clear the Act 4 raid, you can then enter the Denouement to fight Kazeros himself. At least for KR, the initial release of this raid will only include the first difficulty mode until it's cleared for the first time by anyone in the region. Once the raid has been cleared, there will be a normal and hard mode option available for players the next following week. So for KR, they might not have a normal or hard mode version of the Denouement for a couple of weeks if the fight is actually insane. Denouement is such a fun word to say. With this, there are actually some pretty sick rewards for the first mode as well. The actual first group to clear it in KR will get the first title, which has this cool animation on it, a stronghold trophy, and an adventurer banner. And they're making an in-game statue to showcase the characters in-game with the skins that they're wearing. And they'll get a physical, custom-made statue of Kazeros on his throne, which is pretty fucking sick. For people that clear the first difficulty after them, they'll still have the 2 through 10 titles, I believe. And for everyone that clears it, there's an icon title, the Abyss Lord, as well as an MVP background and Kazeros' wings, which look like it's going to be a mount. I'm not sure what all we're going to get in Global. Obviously, we won't be able to get the physical statues that they're giving out for the first time. They said that they're only making 8 of those. But if they make the in-game statue, that'd be pretty cool. And if anyone needs the literal best Deathblade for a competitive group when this comes out in Global, hit me up. That title is looking real nice. But I think most people will point out the obvious RMT and pay to win will always win. That might be true in Global, and it does make it slightly less fun. I hope there's some action taken that help prevent people from cheating or RMTing their way through this event at a minimum. It'd still be super fun to compete regardless, in my opinion. There is also a progression system being introduced with Kazeros, of course. There's this thing being introduced called the Ark Grid, and inside the Ark Grid, you can have 6 cores. Within these 6 cores, you can have gems based on a willpower level of your character. The cores will drop from Kazeros, it seems, at least the ancient quality versions of them, but there will be craftable relic versions of them, or at least some significantly easier way to get the relic versions, I hope. The gems that go into these cores will come from daily activities like Guardian Raids or Curzan. It seems like the gems in the core will provide benefits that can modify your Arc passive or your T skill, or something that can potentially alter playstyles. They didn't show a lot of what the effects would be, but the idea behind being this something that can build your character or change your playstyle or add an alternative playstyle could be very cool, but it could also be really bad. If there ends up being very specific cores that are just significantly better than the rest and your class needs those cores, but they never drop from Kazeros, it could just feel really bad. Kinda reminds me of Corruption from BFA, where it took Blizzard how long before they just added in a vendor where you could buy the Corruption that you wanted. And they said that they intend for this to be a long grind, and a long grind in KR is going to be 3 or 4 more months of grinding than Global has. So I hope AGS at least takes note of this and can figure out how to make this work without it taking the entire duration of the raid existing. They also mentioned Thaemine Extreme. This looks really fun. It's going to be an easier version of Gate 4 Thaemine, except with a 1690 item level requirement for normal and a 1720 item level requirement for hard mode. It's going to be a once a week per roster thing. It seems like from completing the raid, you'll get gold and some form of currency item that can be exchanged for things like random relic books or card packs. This wouldn't take the place of a gold earning raid. This is just an additional piece of content to do. It's also going to be a bit easier than the actual Gate 4 Thaemine. It seems like some of the mechs were turned into just guards, probably Oriana if I had to guess, and some mechs probably removed to make it a bit more casual. This is great to me. I said for a long time that they really needed to just add a checkpoint in at 4-2 so people could experience the fight without so much stress. After doing Gate 4 for 5 or 6 months of farming it, I just didn't see a real downside to adding in the checkpoint, knowing most people have never even tried Gate 4. So I think this will be a cool way for people to get to experience the fight for the first time. They showed off this 1720 Guardian. I think he looks goofy. Also, solo mode Aegir is coming. We already knew it was coming, but now it's coming still. It seems like when we get solo mode Aegir, you'll be able to buy the Aegir mats from the solo shop. And I believe this says you'll be able to buy the behemoth scales as well. And that's a big W. And the Paradise system is also going to be coming. I believe KR's Paradise system is different in some ways than what we're getting in Global. To what extent, I'm not totally sure. But KR won't be getting the same Paradise, and they'll be getting it after us. Global is getting Paradise in July, it seems. I talked a bit about Paradise in a previous video of mine, but it's essentially a farming system. You can do an infinite chaos dungeon-esque portion that will drop you Paradise exclusive gear that will help you do a 1v1 boss fight where you can get weekly rewards. The Paradise gear will only be useful for Paradise, and there's going to be leaderboards to go with it. I'll put a link in the description below for a more detailed version of this in my previous video. There will also be a bit of a UI enhancement to show off what tier roles your accessories have, how many Ark passive points you have, a displayed character power level, and stuff like that to help make it easier to identify what's equipped on a character. And the addition of a personal DPS meter. From what was shown on the DPS meter too, it does seem to show a pretty decent amount of information. It has the obvious things like damage done and DPS, but also things like crit rate and CPM and individual skill breakdowns. I kind of expected a rather washed out version of a meter if we did get one, so it's kind of cool to see this addition with actual useful information in it. I know some people might not like having a DPS meter in the game as well. I personally like DPS meters. I've been a highly analytical WoW raider for a long time. I like having information available to me when I die or how much damage I do. I like doing a lot of damage, and I like being able to compare myself to others to see how I perform. And it can provide a lot of valuable information to improve gameplay or plan efficient cooldown usage or DR timings, all kinds of things. I do understand people will feel like gatekeeping based on this will be a thing. I can tell you that in Global, people already have this meter, and some people will argue that it's already a thing. But from my experience, if someone does exceptionally bad, there's a small chance that someone might take the time to write that name down on a notepad file that they'll never look at again that they call their blacklist. Occasionally, people might comment on someone's DPS. And I'm not saying it's okay to be an asshole about someone not doing as well as you think that they should be, but it's not really as common as people think in my opinion. I raid a lot and I pug a lot of raids, so I do feel like I have a decent perspective of people playing with random people. I just think that one bad experience just adds a lot more impact than people realize sometimes, and someone might do 100 raids without anyone saying anything, but on that 101st raid someone says that they're doing shit, and that person will remember that one person saying that they did shit a lot more than the 100 other people that didn't say anything. I think that the addition of valuable information like this allows players to improve to begin with. If people don't ever know that they're doing bad, then they're never going to actually try to improve to begin with. And I don't think it's the tools that make people call others out for doing worse. I think those people are just assholes, and unfortunately, they'll exist with or without the personal DPS meter. So I do think that adding this in is a good thing to at least at a minimum give people the opportunity to see valuable information that some people just don't know. I'm sure a lot of support players will agree that they needed some holy assistance to realize that their uptime was maybe not as good as they thought it was. I know I certainly did. Aside from that though, there's also some improvements to the party finder window. Seems like you'll be able to see others' characters that are in your group in the party finder menu now. That's super cool to me in my opinion. I kinda don't like how distant this game has become in terms of interacting with people. Everything is in a menu or teleporting or quick queues, and you barely even get to see anyone. So this is at least something cool to look at. And they're also expanding where you can mount. Like in between gates and raid, you'll be able to mount. Mounts have been so worthless in this game that having them as a cosmetic reward for things like the first or any achievement feels kinda lame, because you have to go out of your way to actually show off the mount. Soon you'll be able to show them off in raids like across servers and with random people. I quite enjoy that, and maybe people will start buying these mounts in the auction for more than 5k gold again. There's also just quite a lot of quality of life things that they're adding in that I'll quickly try to run over. They're adding more legendary cards onto the Wandering Merchants, they're removing epic engravings and tripod levels, there's a new collectible being added in called Nookman's Vision Stone. They're adding in a skinned codex. This will be similar to the dressing room in World of Warcraft, or I'm sure Final Fantasy has something similar. Una daily rewards are being vamooshed. You'll now only need to do Unas for the reputations if you wish to do the reputations. I think weeklies are still staying, and so are the Paragon tokens. There will be a pet ability codex added. This is for the pet abilities from the training camp and will help you organize them better. You will no longer need to loot Guardian Souls. Guardian loot will be automatically received when you kill the boss finally. The raid leader will be able to skip cutscenes for the entire group now by holding escape, so no more can we be trolled into watching a cutscene just long enough for our adrenaline to fall off. There are some new hairstyles and body type improvements. I think this is Gunslinger. I had no idea that neck was like that. What the heck? And they're adding in a favor system like League has where you can upvote your teammates for doing well. I think this is a good addition in my opinion. There will be some ways to purchase card packs with gold as well. There are definitely some good things coming for the game, but there were definitely also some things that I had hoped for that just weren't mentioned or I feel would not be improvements for the game at all. They're doing some gold adjustments in KR to accommodate more bound gold. I talked about this in previous videos as well. I just don't think that nerfing gold in raids is something that needs to be done. I think that this is mostly a shift in KR from unbound gold to bound gold like what we already have in global. But I want to bring up this point still because these gold nerfs have come to global at just inopportune times that mostly just inconvenience new and returning players. I want to stress this point still because even after the nerf to 1600 to 1620, it still cost 150k on average to get out of tier 3. This is still too expensive, and if we get any gold nerf right now, it's just going to be worse. AGS said that they're going to be watching this however, so hopefully they don't push any kind of gold nerf to us at any time soon. Especially since they announced that they're adding more gold sinks into the game. I understand KR and global aren't the same game, but when more gold sinks get added into the game designed for KR and global is already struggling with gold just to do the systems that already exist, it can be a bit frustrating. And at the same time, they're getting rid of the gems from Triangle and nerfing gem acquisition rates in tier 3 from Chaos Dungeon and Cubes. This is to target multi-account players, I'd assume, or low investment characters. This doesn't really benefit anyone though, it just takes gems away. And realistically, I'd bet it's a small portion of the population that still buys the Triangle gems. But it's just something I have to ask, why? What's the point? The people that are most likely getting these gems are people that are doing solo mode Triangle on alts that are still struggling to get out of tier 3. So it really just acts more of a hindrance to those players. But I just don't see the point in removing gem supplies from anywhere. They suck to get. And those people need gold, and that at least acts as some sort of extra income per week. Or they could at least remove fusion mats from tier 3. It just doesn't need to cost gold to get out of tier 3 at this point. And that's the biggest barrier for people to try the game. It's such a huge barrier of entry to get out of tier 3 for new players, and it just needs to be addressed much quicker at this point. But they did announce another Mokoko Express event that's going to happen. This one will actually start at 1585 item level, so it will help get a character out of tier 3 for anyone needing to or making a new character with the event. This event will have challenges up to 1660, and then you'll get a box that you can open every 5 or 10 item levels that gives some extra mats and gold up to 1700 item level. Hopefully the amount of mats and challenge rewards are good. If they were similar to what we just got, then I think they would be pretty good. I still would really love to see these events have a second character that could be raised with the event as well though. One character just really isn't enough anymore for new and returning players with how long it takes to build a roster. Just let the Mokokos get 2 uses from the event. And they're extending the Procyon's Blessing buff through Aegir and I think normal Brel. That's like the buff if you clear the raid less than 10 times on your roster that gives some extra damage and damage reduction. And with the addition of the reses in raids, this will definitely help players learn raids a bit easier. So there are some good things coming for new and returning players. I think this event looks like it will be pretty good for a character. The addition of Paradise should also help out some, and they're also adding the ability to fill up groups with NPCs in the future, so maybe raids can actually be completed with people even if the group isn't full at lower item levels. But the biggest problem is that the most important game design changes that can potentially help with all of this will have to come after Kazeros. And for global, that means next year. But they did give some glimpse into what will happen after Kazeros. There's going to be an expansion to the map, and it's getting wide. There's several new continents that were displayed, like Sacria, which means more story is coming. In this story, I'd imagine this is where we're introduced to the Dragussies and get to play as Dragon Knights. There's going to be some new end bad guy, things I would kind of expect from the game in general. I don't think we'll get much on game design changes though until LoA On Winter, unfortunately. I'd love to know if there's going to be some sort of reset after Kazeros. Are we going to be going to tier 5? Is it going to be a tier 4 part 2? Are they finally going to remove ability stones? AGS, can you at least remove fee on cost on ability stones at this point, please? I do feel like we need a way for new and returning players to be able to start playing with veterans again, and after Kazeros would really be a good point in the game to do that, so I'm hoping they plan on it. But how do we feel about this LoA On? I think at a minimum, I've seen less people immediately selling all of their gems in this LoA On compared to previous years, but I've seen a lot of mixed opinions. Personally, I think if 70% of this presentation wasn't already presented in the form of live streams in the previous months, then this would be super hype. I think majority of what was shown was really good for the game, but I think it's coming out a bit too slow. And I think it was presented very poorly. If they had actually been able to come out and present a bunch of new stuff, it would be so much more hype. But doing a full-on recap of the previous live streams first, and then making people wait until the literal end of the Q&A session to see a new class reveal is crazy. But looking at just the meat of what was presented, the new stuff looks really cool. I'm excited for Kazeros and Dragon Knight. Valkyrie looks awesome. I hope the support changes are impactful as well, and help people make groups easier. I hope this next event is insane and helps people bring up some characters that they've been waiting forever to do. And I'm at least looking forward to trying Paradise when it comes out for global, and seeing the full roadmap that AGS is going to post on July 1st. You guys let me know what you thought of LoA On though. Are you hopeful for the game, or are you dooming? Are you guys excited for Kazeros? Because I thought that fight looked pretty sick. But until the next one, dudes. Peace!